these primordial gods, and Kronos being one. And it's a whole lot to get into with this story because you have so many different versions of the story, going from Greek mythology, going from orpheism, and the whole thing with the Diogenes of Hesiod, or Hesiod, however you want to pronounce his name. So many different stories in Greek mythology. Same thing in ancient Egyptian mythology. They were told different depending on what town or what part of the country you was in. But clearly we can see with this, the primordial gods, we got the primordial gods of ancient Kemet, and that the two basically are similar. So now I talked about generational indoctrination. Basically, if you want to get the future, and that's something you got to think about because it's deep when you start to really pay attention. We're talking about teaching kids now so that later the future generation, when they're older, are doing exactly what we want. So you have to think about the type of dedication, as I always say. These people spending the time, the years, teaching these kids so that when they grow up, the information that they have is just normal, regular life. They're going to teach their kids, so on and so forth. So understanding generational indoctrination is understanding the fact that if we just teach the kids, guess what? Everything else is going to take care of itself because they're going to grow up and teach their kids, and so on and so forth. And then we just got to teach the kids. We don't have to worry about it later on because it's going to be the norm. And it's exactly what's happening in our society, today. And the ancient Greeks, you go back to that time, them basically going into ancient Kemet and seeing how the system was run and understanding that. When you really pay attention, how do you basically run the system? And it's exactly how I just said. Everything that we know, we are taught at a young age. And as we grow older and we see adults doing exactly what we was taught, it's normal. Anybody that goes against that normal system, the normal things that we do, is weird, and it will stand out like a sore thumb. So this is how you establish civilizations of people to be under your control, under your system. You start with generational indoctrination, teaching the kids and getting the kids to understand this information, pass it down, so on and so forth. And they looked at the ancient Egyptian civilization and said, okay, well, these people are basically going and following because they was taught to do so. And they copied that. And it's just that simple. They looked at the situation and said, okay, well, we're going to come up with the same type of system. And we're going to create these stories and mythologies to keep our people in line, to get them to follow what we want them to follow. So all you have to basically do now is come up with the right story, the right structure, the right teachings to teach these people to get them in line with whatever your agenda is. And this is exactly what they did. And we're talking about something that's ancient, that's here today, thus telling you exactly, again, who's in power, as you're going to see. So before TV and everything like that, how do you spread this information? Because as I said, we're talking about teaching people, start from kids or what have you, or if you just wanted new information to give to these adults or teenagers that fit into the system or the body of teaching that they already know. And what they would do was they would go from town to town and they would basically tell these stories. Now, have you seen Thor Ragnarok? Just to give you quick examples. Thor Ragnarok, remember the scene in the beginning when Loki is basically having the play and he's basically lying, trying to basically explain the whole situation with the Tesseract. And he is really disguised as Odin, sitting there listening to the story. But the story's a lie. But you notice people gathered around and it's a stage scene and people just listening to the story. And this is how they was telling their history and telling stories or passing information. Same thing as we played the game Assassin's Creed. Remember in Assassin's Creed, you're walking around through the village. It would be a guy out there preaching or talking to the crowd or telling a story. And you have people gather around in large groups listening to the story. So, they would basically hear the story, go home, tell their family, what have you. They would listen to the story, go and repeat it. And that's how information spread, how the story spread, what have you. So in ancient Greece, they did the same thing. So only difference was they would sometimes tell the stories in poems or songs to attract more people. A lot of people was entertained by the poems or the music, and it was easier to spread the information that way and get more people to gather around. And people will want to hear the story over and over again because they will want to learn it and know it so they can go teach it, because it was a poem or a song. It was something cool to know, even so far back then. Now, they called their whole situation a rhapsode. And a rhapsode is basically, I'm just going to read here, etymology and usage. Now it says here, the term rhapsode is derived from rhapsodian, meaning to sew songs together. This word illustrates how the oral epic poem or rhapsode would build a repertoire or diverse myths, tales, and jokes to include in the content of the epic poem. Thus, it was possible through experience and improvisatory skills for him to shift the content of the epos, which epos is basically like a long poem, according to the preferred taste of a specific location's audience. Now, what does that sound like to you? Rhapsode. When you really pay attention to the word. Now, we all heard of rhapsody music. Now, rhapsody music, when you go and look at it, they'll tell you straight up that rhapsody music comes from rhapsode. And we know we have rap. And a lot of people are not going to put that together, but I'm telling you, when I keep saying that this stuff is not ours, that it was given to us, and we're not understanding what it is. And rap, it's poems. We tell stories. It's funny stuff in rap. This stuff they've been doing a long time. Plain and simple. And they understand that music is an influencer. If they understood that when they wrote the Bible, when they wrote those hymns and songs, the whole story of Satan himself, of course they knew that when they gave us music, and understanding how powerful and influential it would be, for us to have this music and put it out. We were striving for an identity, something to hold on to, and they gave us that with rap, with music. We already was putting it out. We already started. It was a matter of time before they use our music or our talents against us. And it's in their mythology, and it's one of the biggest clues as to what's going on. So you have, Orpheism. You have the whole Orphic mythology. It says here, the Orphic theogonies are genealogical works similar to the theogony of Hesiod, but the details are different. Of course, they are really different. The theogonies are symbolically similar to Near Eastern models. The main story has it that Dionysus, in his carnation as Zagreus, is the son of Zeus and Persephone. Zeus gives his inheritance of the throne to the child, as Zeus is to leave due to Hera's anger over a child being born by another mother. The Titans are enraged over the proclamation of attendance and, at Hera's instigation, decide to murder the child. Dionysus is then tricked with a mirror and children's toy by the Titans, who murder and consume him, eating babies. Athena saves the heart and tells Zeus of the crime, who in turn hurls a thunderbolt on the Titans. The resultant suit from which sinful mankind is born contains the bodies of the Titans and Dionysus. The soul of men, the Dionysus part, is therefore divine, but the body, the Titan part, holds the soul in bondage. Thus, it was declared that the soul returned to a host 10 times bound to the will of rebirth. Let that sink in for a second. So now, Orpheism is basically where we get Gnosticism. Plain and simple, talk about the same things, talking about flesh being evil. We know the whole Gnostic faith, talked about before, talk about the same thing. Being trapped in flesh being evil. Same stuff. It's not a coincidence they found the Nag Hammadi manuscripts where they found them. And again, the Dead Sea Scrolls, found a couple years later, being what they are, again, them putting together these stories, putting them out there for the time, to indoctrinate the people of the time in certain areas, That's what that stuff was about. You know, you got a small town, you want to get this, 100 people or 52 people under this doctrine. You want it to fit what your agenda is. So this stuff pops up a lot, and we find it. But the Gnostic faith, a lot of people want to give it the credit for being the originator of that kind of thinking, of flesh being evil. But it's definitely not. And we can see that you had it back in ancient Greece, and everything else is found there. I mean, it's all there, everything. The whole primordial gods, the Agdol, the cosmic egg is even here. So it's saying here, Orphic poetry. This is 532 BC. Made Nyx the first principal knight, and her offspring were many. Also, in the Orphic tradition, Phanes, a mystic Orphic deity of light and procreation, sometimes identified with the elder Eros, is the original ruler of the universe, who hatched from the cosmic egg. And there's many depictions of Phanes and the cosmic egg, and you'll see a serpent. A lot of this stuff we talked about before. This stuff is something, we get into this in a little bit more, where we can't ignore this whole serpent talk and dragon talk is because it's everywhere, as I said. You're going to find this stuff in a lot of different places. Now, as many other civilizations we could look to find stories about, primordial gods, cosmic eggs, and almost all of the ancient civilizations that we know of, that we really don't have so much information from. You'll be surprised how many civilizations have creation stories about the egg, and it's amazing. So in China, you have the story of Pangu, and it says here in the beginning there was an enormous egg containing chaos. Sounds familiar? Finally, the egg burst open, and out leaps the giant dragon Pangu. Now, it's different stories when you read this, just like in all the other mythologies. So in this story, you have sometimes it says when Pangu burst out of the egg, sometimes it's the dragon, sometimes it's the man. And, when he burst out of the egg, he created yin and yang. He basically separated yin and yang. And you look at the depiction of the egg being upper and lower. In some depictions, it'll say that he created earth, which will be on the bottom, and the sky, which will be on the top, by breaking out of the egg. So it says he created rivers with his fingers and strapped the earth down to create flat land. He gathered raw light and tossed them into the sky to become stars. The half-goddess Nua was born after Pangu died from part of the mixture of yin and yang that he had separated. She decided to create humans to have some other beings to talk to and share ideas with, but mostly just to love. She made hundreds and hundreds of mud humans, but soon realized that it would take centuries for her to make enough people. So, as the sun dried each drop, it became a new man or woman. Some say that these humans were the less intelligent ones. Those formed by Nua's own hand became great leaders. She told them to go and populate the earth. Go be fruitful and multiply, go populate. Same type of stories. We find this stuff throughout the ancient world, even with the Dogon. And again, stories are different depending on what you read. Amma and the egg that contains the universe. The early story of the universe has to do with a struggle between Amma, the creator, and Ogo, one of the creations. Sounds familiar? In the beginning, Amma alone was in the shape of an egg. The 4 collarbones were fused, dividing the egg into air, earth, fire, and water, establishing also the 4 cardinal directions. Within the cosmic egg was the material and the structure of the universe, and the 266 signs that embrace the essence of all things. The first creation of the world by Amma was, however, a failure. The second creation began when Amma planted a seed within herself, a seed that resulted in the shape of man. But in the process of its gestation, there was a flaw, meaning that the universe would now have within it the possibility for incompleteness. Now the egg became 2 placentas, each containing a set of twins, male and female. Think about what I'm saying, everything we've been talking about. After 60 years, one of the males, Ogo, broke out of the placenta and attempted to create his own universe, in opposition to that being created by Amma. But he wasn't able to say the words that would bring such a universe into being. He then descended as Amma transformed into the earth, the fragment of placenta that went with Ogo, unto the void. Ogo interfered with the creative potential of the earth by having incestuous relations with it. His counterpart, Nomo, a participant in the revolt, was then killed by Amma. The parts of his body cast in all directions, bringing a sense of order to the world. When 5 days later, Amma brought the pieces of Namo's body together, restoring him to life. Namo became ruler of the universe. He created 4 spirits, the ancestors of the Dogon people. Amma sent Nomo and the spirits to earth in an ark. And so the earth was restored along the way. Nomo uttered the words of Amma, and the sacred words that create were made available to humans. In the meantime, Ogo was transformed by Amma into Yuguru, the pale fox, who will always be alone, always be incomplete, eternally in revolt, ever wandering the earth, seeking his female soul. And there's so much we can really get into with just the story of the Dogon, but have a whole DVD coming out on the Dogon in the near future. But wanted to put out there just not just these 2 other stories, and Greek mythology as well as Egyptian mythology, all involving this cosmic egg, serpents or what have you.